Imagine you are standing on a quiet piece of land where the earth is dry and the wind never stops blowing. To most people, this looks like a problem. It looks like a place where nothing can survive and where the sun is more of an enemy than a friend. We often look at the world and see only the difficulties. We see the things we lack, like jobs or expensive energy or a small population that feels invisible on the global stage. We tend to believe that if a country is small and poor, it must wait for the bigger, wealthier nations to lead the way. We think that being a leader in technology or industry is a game played only by the giants. But what if we are looking at the map all wrong? What if the very things we call lemons, the scorching sun, the empty spaces, and the harsh winds, are actually the most valuable ingredients for a new kind of future? We are living in a time where the entire world is trying to figure out how to keep growing without destroying the planet. For a long time, we thought we had to choose between being modern and being green. We are going to explore why a small nation in southern Africa is proving that you do not have to be a giant to change the world. We will look at how a place that emits almost nothing is becoming a hub for cleaning up the dirtiest industries on Earth. We will see how a simple nugget of iron can represent the pride of a whole continent and how a tiny nation is teaching the rest of us how to turn a sticky situation into a glass of cold, refreshing lemonade. On the surface, we believe that development is a slow climb up a very steep hill. The surface concept here is that a nation must first fix its internal problems, like high unemployment or inequality, before it can think about helping the rest of the planet. We often think of green energy as a luxury for rich countries, something they do once they have already built their factories and roads. On the surface, it seems like Namibia is a victim of its environment. We see the droughts that kill livestock and the high prices paid to neighbors for electricity. On this surface level, it looks like a small country should focus on surviving the climate crisis rather than solving it. We assume that if you are only responsible for 0.01% of global emissions, your voice does not matter in the big climate conversation. This surface view makes us feel like the small players are just waiting for the big players to act. But this view is like looking at a seed and only seeing a small brown object instead of the giant tree it can become. We stay focused on the lemons because they are sour and right in front of us, and we miss the sugar that is shining down from the sun every single day. Behind this surface view lies a hidden assumption that progress must follow the same dirty path that Europe and America took 100 years ago. We often assume that to build an industry, you must first burn a lot of coal and oil. But the hidden truth is that we can leapfrog over the fossil fuel age entirely. We assume that because a country is the second most unequal in the world, it lacks the talent or the organization to lead a global mission. The hidden reality is that desperation often creates the most focused and innovative teams. We assume that wind and sun are just weather, but the hidden truth is that they are high-quality fuel that never runs out and never sends a bill. There is a hidden assumption that the value of a nation is found only in its raw minerals. However, the hidden reality is that the real value comes from the energy you add to those minerals. We assume that global cooperation is just about talk at big meetings. But the hidden truth is that real cooperation looks like Chinese solar panels and German machines working together in the African desert to sell products to Japan. This hidden web of connections is what allows a small nation to act like a global power. It turns the idea of a small population from a weakness into an advantage because a small team can move faster and dream bigger. This leads us to a structural pattern of how global industry is currently organized. We see a pattern where minerals are taken out of Africa, shipped across the world to be processed using dirty energy, and then sold back as finished goods. This structural loop keeps the carbon footprint high and the local profits low. It is a structure of extraction rather than creation. But now we are seeing a new structural pattern emerge. It is the pattern of the green industrial hub. Instead of shipping raw iron ore, we see a structure where the energy stays where it is, and the industry moves to the energy. This new structure is more efficient because it uses the 1,000 kilometers of coastline and the incredible wind speeds of southern Africa to create a product like direct reduced iron ore right at the source. We see a pattern where the transport routes, the red arrows on the map, are also being decarbonized. This is a structural shift from a world that moves things with diesel to a world that moves things with green hydrogen and ammonia. It is a pattern of integration where the service station, the truck, the train, and the ship all run on the same clean fuel produced by the sun. This structural change is what allows a country to move from being an importer of energy to a merchant of clean goods. We can reframe our entire perspective by seeing Namibia not as a vulnerable nation, but as a green industrial superpower in waiting. Instead of seeing a drought as just a tragedy, we can reframe it as a signal that the old ways of hydroelectric power are no longer enough and that we must unlock the wind and sun. We can reframe the high cost of borrowing money as a challenge that can be solved with economic diplomacy and grant funding. Reframing the iron nugget means seeing it not just as metal, but as a piece of African pride. We can reframe the mission from being about climate change to being about socioeconomic emancipation. Instead of asking how we can reduce our tiny emissions, we can reframe the question to ask how our clean energy can help the whole world reduce its massive emissions. This shift in perspective turns Namibians from victims of a warming world into the architects of a cooling one. It reframes the whole continent of Africa as a center of excellence rather than a place in need of help. When we reframe our ingredients as sugar and lemons, the work becomes a recipe for prosperity rather than a burden of survival. This allows us to move from the small goal of surviving to the large goal of thriving. Applying this to our daily life starts with how we look at our own resources. You can apply the Namibian blueprint by looking at your own lemons, the problems that seem to hold you back, and asking what kind of sugar you have available to balance them out. You can apply the idea of a targeted mission by realizing that you do not need to do everything at once. Pick one innovative piece of equipment, like the electrolyzer, and make it the heart of your plan. Apply this by building a diverse team of engineers, lawyers, and dreamers who can work together across borders. You can apply the principle of the green industrial hub in your own community by thinking about how to keep value local. Instead of just selling your raw time or talent, think about how you can use the tools around you to create something more valuable. You can apply the spirit of African pride by being a merchant of your own unique skills. In a world that is becoming more carbon conscious, you can apply this by looking for ways to reduce the impact of your own work or business. Whether you are building a service station or a center of excellence, the principle is the same: use what you have in abundance to fix what you have in scarcity. By doing this, you stop being a passenger in the global economy and start being the driver of your own success. As we reflect deeper on this tale from Southern Africa, we realize that the biggest barrier to change is often our own lack of imagination. We are so used to the way things have always been done that we forget that everything around us was once just a blueprint in someone's mind. The story of Namibia is a story of what happens when a nation decides to stop waiting for permission to be great. It is a reminder that the transition to a green world is not a costly burden, but the only pathway to a new kind of wealth. This wealth is not just about money, it is about the 400 jobs created during construction and the inspiration given to young people who see their country ranking third in the whole world for innovation. It is about a world where the oxygen we release into the air doesn't harm anyone, and the hydrogen we use builds the steel for our future. We are learning that the ingredients for a better world are already here, scattered across the deserts and coastlines of the planet. We just need the spoons to stir them and the courage to take the first sip of the lemonade. The global economic system is being rewritten, and the new authors are those who can see abundance in the middle of barrenness. We are moving toward a time where African pride and sustainable industry are one and the same. This is not just a curious tale, it is a roadmap for every nation and every person who feels too small to make a difference. The sun is shining, the wind is blowing, and the blueprint is ready. If you were to look at the biggest problem in your own life today not as a sour lemon but as the main ingredient for your future success, what is the first piece of sugar you would add to start making your own lemonade?